I'm now porn adjacent. I run a tabletop game stream regularly with some porn stars, which you can check out with suitable precautions in place at tabletopless.org. And just know that I put as much effort into this campaign as I would any other tits or no tits. 2008, International Year of the Potato. Caravan in a Ditch is arrested for war crimes. Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, is published, and Dima Bilan wins Eurovision with his song Believe. Vincent Baker, author of Dogs in the Vineyard and Apocalypse World, publishes Poisoned, a pirate RPG and an obscure game from my collection. Now, there's not a great deal to be said about Poisoned. It's 30 pages, printed like a menu. It is a rather uncomplicated little game. You can see many of Vincent Baker's obsessions around escalation in combat, metagaming rather than immersive play, and a lot of vague hand-wavy stuff. It's not illustrated much at all. He says, desperately looking for one illustration. A little silhouette of a pirate. It's kind of proto-Baker. Not as good as Dogs in the Vineyard. Better than Apocalypse World, because it still retains a few more traditional game elements. But yeah, there's not really a great deal to be said about it. You're playing pirates. You're defined by the evil things that you've done or have had done to you, with various statistics in opposition to each other. So most of the time you're really rolling against yourself more than anybody else. To be good at one thing, you're bad at another, and these are all connected to your evil, wicked, rapey, pillagey ways. That's pretty much it. It's a roll for successes system and a sort of bid up thing, and then that's really all there is to it. There's not a great deal to go into there. What is interesting is the controversy around it and how a lot of positions have changed since 2008, which I guess is 12 years ago now, but still a lot of the same arguments and the same camps exist, right? Poisoned largely became notorious because of a convention game. A convention game in which some of the people playing pirates, who are specifically and quite strongly defined as absolute bastards in this game, slit the throat of the cabin boy and fucked the stump, which is completely in keeping with the idea and the style of Poisoned. And it even has a disclaimer, for adults please, and that was considered adequate back then. It was far from the only controversial indie game at the time. Bliss Stage was being accused of paedophilia, either slightly before, slightly after this was going on. But this was an indie darling, almost. A lot of people came out to defend it. I don't think anyone involved in the notorious convention scenario was banned or anything. And this was the indie scene. And people like Pundit were condemning them for playing this game, for playing the game in that way, and the game itself by extension, calling it sort of lawn crapping, and the people who created it swine, and so on. And now that kind of thing has pretty much reversed, hasn't it? The camps have reversed, and something like that incident, like this RPG, would probably no longer be acceptable to run at conventions, and it would be incompatible with something like the M card. So the game itself, I mean, it's a footnote in role-playing history. It's something through which you can see the development of Vincent Baker's ideas and concepts as he sort of refines them one game after another. I haven't seen the new edition of Apocalypse World yet, but I understand it's not that different. But what is interesting, really interesting, is the kerfuffle that went on around it and one particular session of it. And we can take that and we can compare and contrast that with what Kevin Rolfe did and didn't do and got condemned and banned and so on for. And when we look back on it and we see the people who objected to Poisoned, who weren't defending the free expression of the creator, who were suggesting that things like this shouldn't be made and shouldn't be played, and then we look at the camps now, you know, it's really rather interesting. Yar. Now, as for score, style, I mean, it's a different way to make an RPG, and it's cheaper, though I remember paying more than I probably should have, considering what it is. It's very simple. It's got kind of everything, but it's also missing a lot of stuff that you would like to have with it. But just sheerly for being different and making an effort to do something different and to do something in a different way, in a way that almost looks like a fold-up map, I suppose you could say. I think just the sheer effort to do something different with presentation and the balls-out style with which this was written, and probably wouldn't be written today, I think we've got to give it a 4 out of 5 for style. In terms of substance, it's profoundly meh. There's not a lot to the rules. They're not set out particularly well. They're not described particularly well. You don't have a great deal of room. They're very vague. They're very hand-wavy. They don't create an immersive atmosphere. They create the same kind of metagamey atmosphere where you're cooperating to tell a story rather than inhabiting a story. The same kind of problem that Apocalypse World has, which I don't like very much. So I'm afraid for substance, I'm going to have to only give it a... I mean, it's playable, so a 2. So that gives it a total of 4 plus 2 equals 6 out of 10. 3 out of 5. Interesting historically more than it is as a game. Zhang.
In his house in R'lyeh, great Cthulhu lies dreaming, and when he awakens, he shall have the morning wood of aeons. Call of Cthulhu is a deeply pornographic card game. Enjoy your tentacles.